Baby, let me tell you something. Mornings at my house usually start slow. Coffee brewing, gospel humming low on the radio, me sitting in my robe wondering why the Lord made bills come every month but peace only once in a while. But that morning, peace packed its bags and left. 'Cause right there in my mailbox was a white envelope from Child Services, addressed to my baby boy, Curtis Johnson. Now, Curtis is 23, smart as a whip, goes to that community college over in Atlanta. Always been respectful, always yes ma'am, no ma'am, help you with the groceries kind of child. So when I saw Department of Family and Child Services sitting bold on that letter, my heart dropped faster than rent money on payday. He came out the room stretching, looking half asleep. Ma, what's wrong? I handed him that letter real slow. You tell me, baby. He opened it, eyes moving back and forth, and then he just froze. Color drained out his face like someone unplugged his soul. She didn't, he whispered. Who? I asked. Jenny. Now I'd heard that name before, Jenny. The girl from his college he used to talk about when his smile still had sunlight in it. Cute little thing, light skin, curly hair, loud laugh. I remember Curtis bringing her by one time, said they'd been kicking it. But next thing I knew, she was gone from conversation. Like a storm that came, rained too hard, and disappeared. What'd she do, Curtis? I asked. He tossed the paper on the table. She filed for child support, Ma. Said I'm the father. Now, I ain't no scientist, but I know math. Curtis and that girl stopped seeing each other just a month after they started. So I frowned. A month? Baby, that ain't even enough time for a good argument, let alone a baby. He ran his hand down his face. Exactly. She was seeing somebody else, Ma. I seen it with my own eyes. Dude was always picking her up from campus. I backed off, told her I wasn't playing no fool games. Next thing I know, she calling me crying, saying she pregnant. I told her it ain't mine, and that was that. But baby, that wasn't that. 'Cause now this girl done dragged his name through court like dirty laundry. I looked at the letter, said State of Georgia versus Curtis Johnson. Court date in 2 weeks. My stomach twisted. Lord, this child done got my baby in mess. Curtis stood there shaking his head. She know it ain't mine, Ma. She just want money. Probably trying to trap that other dude, too. I sat him down. Listen here, Curtis. You gon' fight this. You gon' stand up like the man I raised. We'll get that DNA test and end this once and for all. He nodded, but his eyes looked scared. Not for the test, but for the truth. 'Cause somewhere deep down, I could see it. That question every man hates to ask himself. What if I'm wrong? So we spent the next few days gathering papers, calling numbers, trying to figure out how to get that test through the court. And baby, every night I heard him on the phone. Jenny calling, begging, pleading, crying. Curtis, please, you know it's yours. I just need help. He told her plain, Jenny, I saw you with that other man. Don't lie to me. I'm done. But she kept coming back. Texts, voicemails, even showing up on campus. Belly growing, story changing. Then one day Curtis found out that same man, the one she claimed was just a friend, was still around, riding in her car, at doctor appointments, holding the baby in her pictures. And yet, she was still saying Curtis's name in court. That night, my son sat at the kitchen table, quiet. Ma, he said finally, why they always drag the good ones through hell? I didn't have no answer. Just put my hand on his shoulder and said, because hell's cheaper than honesty, baby. He looked up at me, eyes tired but jaw tight. then I'ma pay the price and prove the truth. And that's when I knew this wasn't gonna be no easy fight. This was gonna be courtroom truth, and truth got a cost. When a letter got the words court appearance printed bold up top, you already know Peace done packed her bags and left town. I spent that next week running on caffeine and prayer. Curtis trying to focus on his classes, me trying not to call that Jenny girl and tell her exactly what part of the Bible she forgot to read. We went down to the courthouse that Monday, early, before the Georgia sun even finished yawning. Curtis looked clean, pressed shirt, tied crooked like his nerves. Me? I was dressed for battle. Pearls on, purse ready, Bible tucked inside just in case I needed backup. When we walked in, that air smelled like old paper and bad decisions. A woman at the front desk looked up. "Y'all here for paternity case Johnson versus Parker?" "That's us," I said, standing straight. She handed Curtis some forms. "You'll need to fill these out for the child support hearing." Curtis's jaw tightened. "Ma, she really did this. She really put my name down like I'm some deadbeat." I patted his arm. "Baby, you just keep breathing. The truth don't need decoration. It just need patience." We sat down, and 5 minutes later, the devil walked in wearing a floral dress and fake tears. Jenny.
Her belly was flat now. Baby probably about 2 months old. She looked around like she owned the place. That other man, the one Curtis seen her with, sitting a few rows behind her, pretending like he ain't part of this circus. When her eyes landed on us, she froze for a second, then smiled, that guilty kind of smile, the one to say, "I know I messed up, but I still got something up my sleeve." "Curtis," she said, walking over slow, "we could have settled this outside court." I looked her up and down. "Oh, we coulda. Funny, I don't recall liars having a discount window at the courthouse." Curtis touched my hand. "Ma." I sighed. "All right, I'm cool." Jenny turned back to him. "You think I'd lie about something like this? You think I want this drama?" "I think you wanted money," he said. "You been with that other dude the whole time. You think I didn't see y'all?" She blinked fast, her tone dropping low. "That's just my friend, Curtis. He helping me raise our baby." I had to cover my mouth to keep from laughing. "Our baby, the math ain't even mathin'. You was seeing my son for what, 4 weeks? You expect the Lord and the calendar to argue for you?" She rolled her eyes. "Miss May, with all due respect," I cut her off. "Don't start a sentence with respect if you ain't bringing none." That's when the clerk called, Johnson versus Parker, courtroom 3. We walked in, and the judge was one of them older sisters who didn't play. Hair gray, glasses hanging low, eyes sharp enough to cut through foolishness. She said, "We here to determine paternity and financial responsibility," looking between Curtis and Jenny. "Mr. Johnson, you deny the child is yours?" Curtis stood up, voice steady but eyes tired. "Yes, ma'am. I was with her for a month. Then I found out she was seeing another man at the same time. I tried to get a DNA test, but she refused." Jenny gasped, acting like someone accused her of stealing church money. "That's not true. He's just saying that to avoid responsibility." I leaned forward in my seat and whispered loud enough. If responsibility mean paying for someone else's mess, he right to avoid it. The judge gave me that look. "Ma'am, I'll have order in my courtroom." "Yes, Your Honor," I said sweetly. "I just like order too, especially when it come with truth." The judge sighed, turned to Jenny. "Miss Parker, did you ever have another partner during the time you claim conception occurred?" Jenny hesitated. "We weren't exclusive, but..." "Exclusive? Baby, you sound like a phone plan." Curtis pinched the bridge of his nose. Jenny glared at me. "Miss May, with all due respect," I smiled. "There she go again." The judge finally raised her hand. "Enough! I've ordered a court-supervised DNA test. Mr. Johnson, Ms. Parker, results will be sealed until your next appearance." And just like that, gavel dropped. As we walked out, Jenny leaned close to Curtis. "You'll see, Curtis. I told you I ain't lying. You are the father." He didn't even look at her. "We'll see what the papers say." Outside that courthouse, he let out a deep breath. "Ma, what if she right?" I looked him dead in the eye. "Then we face it like men face storms, umbrella or not. But if she lying, baby, she gon' wish she'd have stayed friends with the truth." And right there, I felt it deep down, the calm before another storm. 'Cause in my bones, I knew this story wasn't done twisting yet.
Now listen, sugar. When the courts say results will be sealed, that's fancy talk for we gonna make you wait long enough to lose sleep. And Lord knows we did. Curtis couldn't eat, couldn't study, couldn't even watch a game without his face looking like a storm cloud trying not to rain. Every knock on the door made my heart jump. I kept thinking them test results were coming. But when the day finally came, that courthouse smelled just like the last time. Paper, nerves, and regret. Curtis wore that same tie I ironed for him, and I swear he looked like a soldier marching into battle with no shield. And me, I had my pearls on again. Ain't no truth heavy enough to make me leave 'em behind. We walked in, and there she was, Jenny. That girl had her hair done up, baby in arms, and that same man sitting 2 seats behind her again. The same one Curtis caught her with. The same one she swore was just a friend. Child, I could feel my pressure rising. Jenny saw us and smiled like this was a family reunion, not Judgment Day. "Hi, Miss May," she said, rocking that baby. "Ain't she cute?" I looked her dead in the eye. "Cute don't fix lies, baby." Curtis leaned close. "Ma, please don't start." "I ain't starting, baby. I'm just recognizing foolishness when it wave at me." The clerk called the case. State of Georgia versus Curtis Johnson. Paternity hearing. The judge walked in. Same one as before. Firm face. Glasses hanging low, patience hanging lower. She said, "We have the DNA results. I'll read them into record." Jenny sat tall, chin high like she was ready for her Oscar moment. Curtis just breathed deep, eyes closed, hand clutching that little cross I gave him when he turned 16. The courtroom got so quiet, even the air stood still. The judge flipped the page and said, "According to the test results, the probability of paternity is 99.9%. Curtis blinked, confused. "What?" My hand flew to my chest. "Your Honor, what you say?" "Mr. Johnson," the judge repeated, "the test confirms that you are the biological father of the child." You could have heard a pin drop or my jaw hitting the floor. Jenny let out a sob, loud, dramatic, like she just won a trophy. That man sitting behind her stood up, mouth hanging open. "Wait, what?" he said, stepping forward. "She told me that baby was mine." Now, baby, that courtroom turned into a soap opera real quick. The judge banged her gavel. "Order! I will have order." But it was too late. That man, Marcus, was pointing at Jenny, red in the face. "You told me I was the father. I've been sending you money every month." Jenny turned, crying harder now. "I didn't know. I thought." "You thought?" I said, standing up. "Baby, you done thought yourself straight into chaos. You had 2 men paying for 1 baby and a courtroom full of witnesses to your foolishness." The judge shot me a look. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, Your Honor," I said, sitting down, "but the truth don't need permission." Curtis just sat there, eyes wide, tears fighting to stay put. He looked at Jenny, not angry, not even shocked, just tired. "Why, Jenny?" he asked soft.
Why lie to both of us? She shook her head. I was scared. I didn't want to raise her alone. I thought. You thought? He said. You thought you would let me believe that you loved me? The judge sighed. Mr. Johnson, you have legal rights and obligations now. We'll schedule a follow-up for custody and support terms. Jenny reached for him, whispering, Curtis, please, I'm sorry. He pulled his hand back. Don't. You ain't sorry for what you did. You sorry you got caught. Baby, that boy walked out the courtroom without another word. Head high, eyes forward, not out of pride, but peace. I followed him, my heart heavy but proud. When we got outside, I said, You okay, baby? He took a deep breath. No, Ma, but I will be. I ain't gonna run from my child, but I ain't letting nobody play me again either. I smiled, wiped a tear, and said, That's my boy. Walk tall in your truth, even if it broke your heart getting there. And when I looked up at that courthouse sign, I thought, justice don't always feel good, but sometimes it's the only thing that's left us honest.
Now, baby, I always say, truth don't stop working once the judge bang that gavel. Sometimes it just clock in for overtime. After that courtroom storm, Curtis tried to get his life back to normal. He was still in college, still working part-time at that auto shop, still trying to figure out how to be 23 with a baby he didn't even know how to hold right. Jenny? Well, she wasn't done stirring the pot. One week she called, crying, talking about, Curtis, she need diapers, formula, this, that. Next week, she posts pictures with Marcus. Yeah, that same fool who stood up in court shouting, she said it was my baby. And baby, the caption always said, my little family. Now, Curtis tried to keep calm, but I could see it eating him alive, that mix of love, confusion, and betrayal sitting heavy on his chest. One evening, he came home quiet. No music, no talking, just sat at the table staring at his phone. I fixed us some cornbread and greens, 'cause heartaches still need feeding. Mom, he said after a while, I don't know what to do. She keep calling, keep playing both sides. One minute she say she want me involved, next she posting him with my daughter. I sighed deep. Baby, a woman that confused don't need a man. She need a mirror. He chuckled weakly. I just want my baby to know me, Ma. That's all. Then do that, I said. Ain't nothing stopping you from loving your child except the noise Jenny bringing. You love that baby right. And when she grow up, she'll see who stood and who lied. Next week, Curtis filed for visitation rights. Judge granted him weekends. And baby, the first time he brought that little girl home, Lord, I almost melted. Tiny thing, big eyes, skin soft as a prayer. He held her like she was made of glass, didn't even blink. Ma, he whispered, I don't even know what to say to her. Say hi, I told him. Love don't start with speeches, baby. It start with showing up. He smiled, tears glistening. Hi, Layla, he said. I'm your daddy. And that baby, I swear she smiled back like her spirit already knew him. That moment right there, it fixed something in him the court couldn't break. But peace never stays too long where chaos got a key. A month later, Jenny came knocking. Not calling, not texting, knocking. It was Sunday morning. I had my robe on, pancakes on the stove, and my patience still sleeping. She stood there, eyes puffy, baby bag in hand. Miss Mae, can I talk to Curtis? I called him out the room. He came to the door, looked at her, face blank. "What you want, Jenny?" "It's Marcus," she said. "He left, took my rent money and gone. I can't do this alone, Curtis, please." Now, baby, I saw the pain in her eyes, but I also saw the pattern. "You said you wanted him, Jenny," Curtis said. "You said y'all were raising her together." She wiped tears. "I thought he'd change. I thought he'd stay, but he gone." "And now you want me to fix it," he said flat. "After all the lies?" She shook her head. "No, I need help." I stepped forward. "Jenny, let me tell you something. Life got a way of bringing us to the same test till we learn the lesson. You lied because you wanted control. Now look at you, losing everything because you wouldn't tell the truth when it mattered." She sniffled, eyes on the floor. "I know, Miss May. I was wrong." I softened a little. "Ain't about being wrong, baby. It's about getting right. That little girl don't need broken promises. She need peace. And peace start with honesty." Curtis stood there quiet, then said, "You can drop her off here whenever you need to, but we ain't playing this back and forth game no more. I'm her father, not your backup plan." Jenny nodded slow. "Okay." And for the first time, I saw something real in her. Not the performance, not the tears, just guilt and maybe a little bit of growing up. That night, Layla slept in the same crib Curtis used when he was a baby. Curtis sat beside her, eyes soft. "Ma," he whispered, "I think she got my smile." I grinned. "She got your heart too, baby. That's what mattered most." And as I turned off the light, I thought to myself, sometimes the truth don't end the story. It just started a brand new chapter where love finally stopped running from itself.
"Baby, peace can't live in a house where pride keep coming uninvited." After that Sunday, things started looking halfway calm again. Curtis was doing good with little Layla, even started smiling more. He'd come home after class, feed her, read her bedtime stories in that soft voice I ain't heard since he was a boy himself. Sometimes I'd peek in and see him sitting on the floor, her tiny fingers grabbing his thumb, and I'd whisper to myself, "Lord, maybe this storm finally learned to rest." But peace, baby. Peace don't ever stay too long when lies still owe rent. One Thursday evening, Jenny showed up again. No tears this time. No baby in her arms, just attitude and perfume strong enough to knock over the truth. "Curtis, we need to talk," she said, stepping right up on my porch like she paid the mortgage. I raised an eyebrow. "You mean ask to talk, baby?" She rolled her eyes. "Yes, ma'am. I just need a minute." Curtis came out the house, wiping his hands on a towel. "What now, Jenny?" "It's about Marcus," she said, arms crossed. He laughed under his breath. "Of course it is." "He been texting me, saying he want to see Layla. He said he changed." Curtis's jaw clenched. "He changed? From what? Broke to broker?" I nearly spit my coffee. "Boy, don't tempt me to laugh in prayer." Jenny frowned. "I'm serious. He said he want to step up." Curtis shook his head. "Step up into what? You told that man she was his for months, took his money, and now you think he gonna show up playing daddy when it's convenient?" She snapped. "You think you better than him just 'cause you go to college?" I stepped between them. "Enough. Ain't no one better than nobody, but there is folks who learn faster. Now, Jenny, if Marcus want to see that baby, he gonna have to do it right, through the court, through permission, not through your phone." She looked at me deflated. "I just don't want to fight no more." "Then stop picking up old wars. That man left you once, he'll do it again. And I ain't letting him drag my son back through mud you supposed to be washing off." She nodded slow, like she heard it for the first time.
Then she whispered, "You ever forgive somebody who hurt you, Miss May?" I looked her dead in the eye. "Every day, baby. But forgiveness don't mean I let 'em back in my kitchen." 2 weeks later, Jenny must have forgot that talk, 'cause one night Curtis was dropping Layla off and saw Marcus sitting in her apartment like he never left, beer in hand, shoes off, baby in his lap. He didn't yell, didn't swing, just stood there at the door, quiet as thunder before it cracked. "Jenny," he said, "I told you, I ain't doing this back and forth." Marcus laughed. "Man, she said you was soft. I see she wasn't lying." Jenny jumped up. "Marcus, stop." Curtis just shook his head. "You right, man. I am soft. That's why I walked away instead of catching a charge tonight." Then he turned to Jenny. "You can keep your drama, but you ain't keeping my daughter from me. I'll see you in court before I let my child grow up watching this mess." And baby, he meant it. He came home that night quiet again, the same quiet I remembered from before the storm started. He sat down at the table, shoulders heavy. "Ma, I'm tired," he said. "Every time I try to do right, she pull me back into wrong." I squeezed his hand. "Baby, the devil don't fight folks he already got. He fight the ones trying to get free." He looked up at me, eyes wet. "You think I'm doing the right thing?" I said, "You ain't just doing right, you being right. And that's something most folks too scared to try." Next day, he called his lawyer, filed for joint custody. He said, "I ain't letting my baby grow up confused about who her daddy is. Now, baby, I could feel something shift in him. He wasn't that hurt boy no more. He was a man with purpose, a man who done walked through shame, betrayal, and courtroom lies, and still stood tall." And when he kissed Layla goodnight that weekend, he whispered, "You gonna grow up knowing your daddy didn't run." I watched him, tears falling quiet. 'Cause the truth is, sometimes pain don't break a man. It builds the kind of strength peace can trust to come home to. Baby, let me tell you, when the truth done been buried, it don't die. It just grow roots deep and ugly until it push its way back up. And that's what happened the day of that final custody hearing. The courtroom was cold as church on a Sunday morning after tithes done got spent. Curtis stood there in his suit, looking calm, but I could see that storm still humming behind his eyes. Jenny came in late, holding Layla, face tight like she hadn't slept in weeks. And Marcus, he didn't even show. Guess guilt don't like dressing up for court. The judge, that same woman with wisdom in her wrinkles, looked over her glasses and said, "Mr. Johnson, Miss Parker, this court has heard enough. Today we finalize custody and visitation." I held my breath. Jenny started crying before the judge even finished. "Your Honor," she said, voice shaking, "I know I made mistakes. I was scared. I lied. I hurt people, but I never stopped wanting what's best for my daughter." The judge nodded slow. "You say you want what's best, Miss Parker, but what's best don't come from fear. It come from honesty." She turned to Curtis. "Mr. Johnson, you've shown consistency, support, and restraint. Qualities this court don't take lightly." Curtis stood tall, but I could see his hands trembling. "I just want my daughter to grow up knowing both her parents love her, but I can't keep fighting chaos. If Jenny ready to co-parent right, I'm here. If not, I'll still be here for Layla." Now, baby, you could hear the sincerity in that boy's voice. It wasn't pride talking. It was peace. The judge leaned back, thought for a second, then said, "The court awards joint custody to Mr. Johnson and Miss Parker, with primary residence alternating bi-weekly. Both parents will attend family mediation to establish stability for the child.
Jenny covered her face and sobbed. Curtis just nodded, and me, I whispered a thank you to the Lord that my baby finally got the peace he earned.
Outside the courthouse, Jenny came up to us. Her eyes were red, but her tone was soft. The kind of soft that come after all the lies done run out of fuel. "Curtis," she said, "I'm sorry for everything." He nodded. "I know. Just don't be sorry for me. Be better for her." She looked at me next. "Miss Mae, you always told me the truth, even when I didn't want to hear it." I smiled. "That's 'cause truth ain't my enemy, baby. I just know how it talk. Sometimes it whisper, sometimes it holler, but it always mean well." She nodded slow, then walked away holding Layla close. That night, Curtis sat on the porch, quiet like his daddy used to be before a big rain. Layla was inside napping, the house finally at peace. "Ma," he said, "you ever wish life came with a reset button?" I chuckled. "Lord, no. Folks would just make the same mess twice." He laughed a little. "I guess you're right." Then he got real still, eyes on the sky. "You think Layla will ever understand all this?" "She will. 'Cause one day, she gonna look at you and see a man who stayed when running would have been easier." He nodded, wiped a tear. "I didn't even want to be a daddy, Ron, but now I can't imagine my life without her." I smiled, leaned back in my chair. That's how God writes stories, baby. He used the broken pieces to make something beautiful if you let him. As the moon rose, I looked at my boy, no longer that scared child who ran from drama, but a man who walked through it and still found grace on the other side. And I thought to myself, some storms don't come to destroy you, baby. They come to wash the dirt off what you was always meant to be. Curtis kissed my forehead, then went inside to check on his daughter. I stayed on the porch, watching the night settle quiet. Then I said, soft but sure, "Peace ain't something you find, Lord. It's something you teach us to keep." And just like that, after all the lies, courtrooms, tears, and truth, the Johnson house was still, finally still. Child, that courtroom was hotter than a July kitchen. But if this story touched you, don't you just sit that quiet, baby. Go on and hit that like button. Let Auntie know you still riding with the truth. Drop a comment below. Tell me what you would have done if you was Curtis. And if you love stories about love, lies, and the kind of lessons life don't teach in church, then subscribe to Whispers of Auntie Mae, sugar. 'Cause around here, we don't just tell stories. We live them, one heartache at a time. Deep stuff.